all comes down to being authentic and adding value to someone's life. If you're not adding value with what it is you're trying to sell or share, or no matter the industry, what good is it? And then you're in a world where pumping out content is required, right? So how do you make sure that everything you're putting out has that value? There's a lot of data. It's limitless, basically, right? So the ability to consume in a useful manner, I think, is the biggest struggle. When I start to go down my rabbit hole of data streams, I have to stop myself and say, no, what is my goal right now? Today, what do I need to know from that information in front of me to meet that goal? And that is all I will look at for that time being. Put on your blinders and take baby steps. You don't need all that information at once. You don't need it in the ways that you think you might need it at first. But take that time, build out the tools, and just make sure you keep your eye on the goal. When we find what does work, we turn it all the way up, put the money behind it, increase our target audience, whatever the situation is, real time being able to adjust that and see that it's working, it changes everything.
Hi, and welcome to Marketing Over Chai. Today, I'm joined by Ashley Mellor, a data-driven marketing strategist and storyteller. She has worked across industries from food to political campaigns for candidates and land use issues to electric municipalities. She currently works with a staffing agency. In today's episode, we're discovering her journey and discussing the art of storytelling. Welcome, Ashley. I'm so happy to have you here on Marketing Over Chai.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Pleasure. First, Ashley, what's the drink that gets you going? Mine's a cup of green tea today. What do you like?
My matcha.
Than green, eh?
Exactly. Might as well just be chewing on the leaves.
So let's dive in. Ashley, tell us a little bit about your career journey and what led you to where you are right now.
All right. Well, it's kind of long, so I'll pare it down, and it's definitely quite the journey and very non-traditional. Before I dig into it, I want to preface it with my journey's always had a person behind me, my best friend, my husband, supporting me the entire way. I don't go, a lot of this is like, I did this and I did that. And really, he was behind me, supporting me in everything that I did. So if we kind of start back where it all started, it was in high school. And I know that for me, that's a long journey back in the past. But I attended one of the very first charter schools in California because a teacher and a coach knew that there was a better way to educate. And he started a school on his credit card. So starting high school in that way, and being one of 32 kids in a single classroom where there's teachers rotating rooms, you're not moving, it really was significant and made me who I am the very beginning. While I didn't acknowledge it then or respect it then, I do looking back on it now. It attracted some of the best teachers, the best students. We were always challenged. We were pushed beyond our comforts. We were high schoolers who were lobbying Congress. We were on talk shows. We were leaders in technology, and that's where my passion started. Of course, I fought it the whole way, but that's where it started. If we wanted to learn something that was not on the curriculum, we were supported. We weren't told that, oh, it's out of the box. It was absolutely, how can we support you? What books can we get you? What tools can we get you to learn something different? So it was definitely beyond a college experience for me and prepared us in so many ways that I wouldn't understand till later in life. Funny enough, this is also the time that I said I wanted nothing to do with politics ever. And obviously that did not stick. That comes back around. So I went from this amazing high school experience to I was going to go into college. I had all these plans, and that got detoured to motherhood. So you'll see a lot of my story. Raising children and my family is directly integrated in my career. There's no separation of how I moved forward. So I spent my young 20s taking care of 3 under 4 that would end up having multiple medical conditions, near-death experiences. It was anything but normal. Whatever normal is, that wasn't it. Looking back on those years, as exhausting as they were, they definitely helped shape me more into who I am, right? So those years taught me to be an advocate no matter what. They taught me that no one knows everything, but you can learn everything if you want to, right? They taught me there will be times that you'll be so exhausted, you cannot keep going, but you have to because there's someone relying on you. Then it was 3 little boys. Today it's an organization I support and 3 big boys and some 4-legged ones. So there's kind of a lot of craziness going around in our house. What I was missing then and what really held me back into actually jumping into a professional situation was I didn't have a typical education, right? I was gaining the tools I would need to pursue my dreams, but I didn't know that then, right? So where did I start professionally? My motivation came from being bored. Okay. I'm also one, if you dare me, I'm terribly competitive, so I'm gonna do it. Right. So I was exhausted from raising children. My brain was bored. Right. What kind of conversation are you gonna have with a 4-year-old? You're not. Like, where's my Cheerios? So I jumped back into learning everything that I could get my hands on. My husband bought me a computer, just said, do whatever you're gonna do. Don't know what it looks like, but just do it. I ended up going back to work at my old high school in my mid-20s as a computer aide teacher. Before anyone knew it, I was building out learning management systems. That was kind of the birth of online education, and I was intrigued by everything. I started writing curriculum. I had the opportunity to brand a new program we were launching, and that's really right there. That's what got me into branding. And it was just one of those situations where they needed someone to fill a position, and I said, okay, why not? I'll figure it out. It'll be fine. And it was. I went on to find myself building a website for our district and working in the marketing department. I also had a lot of flexibility in trying new things as my husband was the IT director. So that allowed some doors that maybe not otherwise were there. But again, education's fickle. When budget cuts come in and you're not the one producing ADA, so average daily attendance, you're the first one on the chopping block. So I was without a job right before Christmas with 3 littles, but I made the best of it. I ended up landing a position with a food scientist and becoming her marketing manager, and shortly became the analyst for her proprietary trend forecasting program, which was eye-opening and exciting. And that's when I started to really love data and the role it played in our everyday lives, and how you could trend model out a forecast and you could be so right just from finding keywords and things that are being mentioned in articles. It's just crazy how it works. So I was hooked. I loved it, but at the same time, I needed a little bit more flexibility because I was also the main caregiver for our kids. And I needed to allow time for what they needed, you know? Uh, then I started working at a small agency helping small businesses launch or relaunch their branding. I was also a photographer for Paul Ecke, the king of poinsettias back in the day out in San Diego. And that's where politics entered, funny enough. I, again, was without a job because they sold, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. So I decided to begin volunteering in my community, which led me meeting 2 of the most influential mentors of my life, Lael and James. I interviewed with Lael to become part of the Valley Center Design Review Board. So what we did there is we oversaw projects that were looking to be built by developers and make sure that they aligned with our community standards. So it's a lot of plan reading and whatnot. And my husband's family was in construction. So I'm like, oh, I can do this. No way was I qualified to do this. So, but Lael saw something in me and she said, you know what, you're perfect. Let's do it. So I started volunteering with that. I met Susan, a dear friend of mine and one of my biggest cheerleaders throughout my career. Just enjoyed everything about it, but it didn't pay the bills, right? So it's like, okay, volunteering is great, but how do I get back into supporting my family? So I had already been doing some minor marketing for local candidates, but nothing where it was running a campaign. That experience, along with what I was doing in the community, opened the door for me to write out one of the craziest campaigns I have ever seen on a local level and bringing my career up to the next level. So Lael introduced me to James, and that's kind of where they come in together. And the rest is history. He saw something in me while he interviewed me in my home with my 3 kids trying to stay in their room. And, from that, I'm like, I'm not getting this. There's no way I'm getting this job. Like, this is ridiculous. I was talking to my son earlier today, and I'm like, it was a train wreck. Like, our lives were a train wreck. And he goes, Mom, it was the most beautiful train wreck ever. I'm just like, okay. So again, I felt like that was my shot at something large. Lucky for me, he thought so too. And we just went for it. I was not qualified. I had no idea what the journey would look like, but I was not going to give up. And this position ended up leading me to run for public office, winning, open many more doors in politics. And then we moved. So I had built this entire network of people. And I saw my career going one way, and we moved 1,400 miles away from home to a place where we knew nobody and had no network. And that is what ended me up at where I am today. working for Pride Staff Dallas.
Oh, that's crazy journey.
It
And
is.
what I love through it all is your resilience and your openness to try different things, to and not just try different things, just try and do really well at different things. And that is like very inspiring. I have a similar story, right? I moved from Mumbai to Toronto like 5 years ago. Again, already built like some amount of a network and like some amount of
Right.
things. So from scratch is never easy, but it does get easier. I think each time you do it in place. So yeah, you kind of learn from the last time, I guess. I don't know. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
There's so many pieces of that story that are going to inspire many. Balancing work and life, which we will get into a little later. One of the other things that is constant is this art of storytelling, whether you're working with a school, whether you're working with your political campaigns. So, yeah, how did you discover that this was a strength you could lean on?
How did I discover it? That one's a harder one for me. So for a long time, I didn't even realize it was something I was doing, right? It was simply, how do I learn the best? And then how can I use that to support what I'm doing in my job, right? So it was, what captures my attention? How do I learn? So that format, I would soon realize, was storytelling. Before that, it was just making sense of facts and being able to share them in a way that resonated with people, right? That was understandable and moves them to take action, whatever that action may be. So really, I harnessed it from the beginning, not knowing what it was. And throughout what I was doing, I just perfected it. It's, I'm telling a story this way, or, I'm sharing data this way. I'm sharing what I'm trying to do, whether it be food or politics, and it's not resonating. So how do I adjust that? How do I make it more authentic? Right? How do I do that? And you'll find labeling things I'm not the best at. I was not taught in school like many of my peers. I was taught by YouTube articles. Correct terminology really didn't make an appearance in my life till much later. It was, hey, do you want to learn how to run ads? Yeah, I do. Okay, great. Here's some things you can try. So storytelling was one of those things where it's, I like to put words together, but what does that exactly look like? And that's where it came out, especially in politics, because you had a clear goal, right? You needed people to understand what you were doing, why you were doing it, and what you needed them to do. So that lends it in so perfectly to creating a story.
Another aspect that I really like that you mentioned is the data back. You've got worked with that food analyst and you really got into data then. So can you tell us a little bit about that project and what went on there and how did you realize that the power of data behind marketing? Like, what was that story?
Well, it's interesting because I'd say she was definitely an entrepreneur. She had her own company and setting trends for some of the world's biggest food industry players, right? And it was just three of us. And I was brought on to just kind of handle the digital face of the company. There wasn't much. She needed more because she was growing clientele. And then it turned out to our analyst that we were working with at that time that managed her data flow passed away from cancer unexpectedly. Yeah, so it was definitely a hard time for her, but at the same time, we had to figure out what we were going to do. So I was put into that role. Um, and at that time, it was a proprietary system. Now, I mean, my goodness, anyone could pull that kind of data and come up with an analysis of it and what it means and whatnot. But then it was a very closed system. And to see that you could dig into keywords, you could dig into what people are talking about on the media in talk shows, and you can pull all that information together and it creates this stream of storytelling, and you're just the one that has to put words behind it to resonate. There's something so powerful with that. I don't know how else to explain it. It was in that moment where it was like, okay, all these things can be pulled together and show a clear storyline from A to B, and then we just have to finish it off.
Not just like the building aspect, it's even the distribution aspect. It changes so much when you are using all these tools, right? Because because then you can find yourself in front of people that you've never met and that you've not really crossed paths with even online. Because they're interested in the same things that you are, you're suddenly connected through something that is larger, which I find really beautiful. And like we're really lucky to be in this age of like the internet that is possible. Um, that that brings us to our next section, which is the icebreaker. So I've got a few questions for you, which I'm gonna just throw at you. They're easy, don't be worried.
Okay,
And we're just gonna get to know you a little bit and what you like and what you don't like. Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
What's your favorite social media platform?
Instagram.
Person or night owl?
Definitely night owl.
City or the countryside?
Okay, well, I am a fanatic for the city. I live in the city, but I'm a goat milking city girl.
Interesting. Um, what's the most overlooked marketing metric according to you?
Churn rate.
Data-driven tool?
Okay, totally boring, but Google Analytics for, honestly.
A mistake marketers should stop making.
Stop inserting their bias. Audit yourself regularly.
A good one. Book or a podcast on data that you recommend?
Okay, well, this is not going to surprise you, but I am a fanatic for the Marketing Millennial podcast. I mean, we met in Marketing Land, so of course, that's it. But I'm also currently reading Obsessed, Building a Brand People Love from Day One, which is absolutely phenomenal.
I'll check that out. Over to like Guru Land tomorrow. I hope I bump into you there.
Yes, I will be there.
Piece of marketing advice you ever received?
People's actions tell you the real story. Make sure you're listening.
Just to the end of the icebreaker, and we move into the section where we discuss the state of the industry. In your experience, how does data shape the way marketing strategies are built compared to a few years ago? Because at that time, it was very exclusive access to a certain group of people, but today everybody has most of the tools or like different tools that kind of give you more or less the same output. Have there been any major shifts in how business use data today?
I think the number one shift would be businesses understanding the power of data. That wasn't that long ago really 2016 election is when that political cycle, at least, is when the power of data really started to getting noticed in the traditional sense, right? We had polling, we had all those different things, but the power of data in this to the minute kind of a view really changed the way things were done. So today we have an incredible near limitless access to data, right? Everything you do, places you go, what you buy, what social platforms you're on, honestly, everything is trackable and can be leveraged to help us as marketers with our strategy, right? So in 2016, I'll go back to when I was running the No on B land use political campaign that I was working on. That was the big one that I worked with James. It was kind of my break into land use and initiatives in my community. I had never been in a situation where I was assured by everyone around me that something was a lost cause. Absolutely, there's no way you can do anything with this. And I believe something entirely different. Why I believe that, I don't know. I had no reason to. But I knew that if we leaned into data, not polls, in a way that was not utilized in my field at the time, along with telling the truth, being completely authentic of what we were doing, who we are, why we were asking for them together, to come together and support us, we would have something different. So we were using Google Analytics. We were using metrics on all of our ads, Facebook and Instagram separately, then that now became Meta, YouTube, everywhere we could put them. And we listened to what our customers, which are our voters, were saying, what got them engaged, what didn't get them engaged. And that story and the way that we were sharing it, backed by data and only by data. I did not use polling at that time, which some will say that is data. And I understand, but we're talking up to the minute, right? It mobilized hundreds of volunteers. We had celebrity supporters. We had the media on our side. We had supporters pouring in support that months before wouldn't have even couldn't show you on a map where we were located in San Diego, right? And they were all fighting for us. So we touched over 1.4 million people 5 times. in the San Diego County, and we were outspent 10-1, and we won by a landslide. So that right there, it is a very clear example of how data plays and how it has changed the way we do things, voting, business, everything. It's touched everything.
That's a beautiful story. And it's also very unconventional, right? Because everyone, especially for politics, I mean, they're still kind of polling, but it's interesting that you were kind of one of the pioneers in using it the way you did.
Well, thank you. I would not call myself a pioneer at all. I would call myself stubborn and just believed in something that I shouldn't have, but I just knew it and I had to test it. And thankfully it worked out in my favor. That is one of those wins, but with every win you have a loss as well.
It's true. Many marketers feel kind of overwhelmed by the sheer volume of data available. And advice would you give a marketing team, who's just starting to leverage these data-driven strategies?
There's a lot of data. As we talked about, it's limitless, basically, right? So the ability to consume in a useful manner, I think, is the biggest struggle. When I start to go down my rabbit hole of data streams, I have to stop myself and say, no, what is my goal right now, today? Maybe this campaign, maybe, this quarter. What is my goal for that section? And that's always where I start. What do I need to know from that information in front of me to meet that goal? And that is all I will look at for that time being. Of course, my goals change and I'll keep the other streams open and use it when appropriate. But for someone really starting out and leveraging that, funny enough, I'm with a company where we are building out tools to do that right now. So I'm kind of back at the beginning of that. It's put on your blinders and take baby steps. You don't need all that information at once. You don't need it in the ways that you think you might need it at first. But take that time, build out the tools, and just make sure you keep your eye on the goal, whatever that goal may be for that quarter, again, that project, whatever it is. And I can tell you, building out those tools are literally the most overwhelming task because you're having to look at the full picture and getting every possible data stream you might ever need into this tool to then only look at like maybe one for 3 months, right? Or if there's something that goes sideways, you have the access to look at everything. But yeah, it's keeping your eye on your goal and not getting too far down that rabbit hole with everything you have at your fingertips.
I think what I'd add to that is like there are a lot of vanity matrix out there because like you have so it's just not letting that glitter kind of that shift that focus. Yeah, it would be something that I need to constantly remind myself about.
Absolutely. And you'll be watching it and it will go sideways for a whole day. And don't take any action on that. Watch it because you're like, oh my goodness, my whole world's falling apart. It's not. It's, it's a day before a holiday or like whatever it is going on. Like take a second, breathe, it'll be okay. Look at it as a whole picture.
And I think also like most marketing people are very passionate. So you kind of like feel the numbers. So when they're kind of like going down and not doing what you want them to do or what they're supposed to do and what they're like strategically and like you've got data to believe that it's going to climb at this particular time. Yeah, you kind of get more passionate about it. And it can be emotional.
It's soul crushing. It's soul crushing when you spend a month or two or even a week building out a campaign for something and you're like, this is it. I focus on all the data. I have the right graphics. I have the right target audience. I have the things and it totally flops. It's like, hold on. And then you think, what am I doing? I don't belong here. Then imposter syndrome comes in, right? Especially as marketers that are so passionate about it, imposter syndrome is a serious issue. You have to be like, okay, no, it's not me. I missed something and we'll go back and revisit it, but it's not, you don't belong here. It's not, you don't know what you're doing. It's just a realization that didn't hit like I thought it would. Now I need to go figure out why.
Walk us through how you use data to optimize your campaigns in real time. Like, what are the metrics you monitor closely?
This is going to be a bit relative because I'm usually a one-man team, especially in a lot of my campaigns. Like I hired out videography and photography, but when it came to data and actually putting together the creatives, it was just me. It wasn't until my position right now that I actually have somewhat of a team. There's more than one. So yeah, that's different. So that changes the way that I would look at the data. Conversion and ROI, really those were always my top ones. Is what I'm putting out on an ad or a platform, social, whatever it is, whatever I'm putting out into the digital face, is it paying off like I projected? If not, why not? And then walking back through everything, the traffic, the CTR, so on and so forth, until I find that piece that's out of place. And then I'm going to adjust it, test it, and revisit it. I'm the queen of adjust, test, and revisit, right? And because we have the ability to see data, I mean, what are we, less than 24 hours behind on, say, Google Analytics, for example? We have that ability to look so quickly and do that test without it breaking the bank. So where I come in a lot of times is, a campaign or a business, are working off of polling like we've talked about, or month-old reports, or sometimes near a quarter-old reports. Like, what changes can you make on those that are going to affect your current audience? Nothing, or very little. And again, I might get crucified for that, but right? So currently what that looks like is we run ads on a weekly cycle until we find the performance that we want. Of course, I'm going into it, I'm going to get the performance I want right away. And then that soul crushing moment comes and it's like, no, this is a new industry. You need to revisit this, right? And then when we find what does work, we turn it all the way up, put the money behind it, increase our target audience, whatever the situation is. And that's that real time being able to adjust that and see that it's working. It changes everything, right? So currently, my focus is lead conversion while lowering our cost per conversion. Our cost per conversion is really high. We need it lower for what we're trying to work through, right? So our audience targeting is also a large factor, getting the incorrect audience, redirecting that, so on and so forth. So I start my day by pulling up our web metrics. Again, maybe boring. It is what it is. I like to see the traffic on the website. It gives me an idea of something wrong. Did maybe an article come out that we weren't expecting and it's backlinked to us? All those different things. I just leave it running. I check immediately if there's an abnormality that we need to look at. But again, right now in my current position, we're still building out the tools. So I don't have, typically I would say, in a political campaign, I would make sure that whatever it was, the traction I was receiving was what I was looking for. And if it wasn't, I pull it and adjust it, right? So we have that ability to immediately pull, immediately adjust. Again, that's basically what I do. I test, I adjust, I test, I adjust. And because we have that immediate data, we can do that much faster and we're able to adjust for our audience.
That slogan though, test, adjust, revisit. It should really be on a t-shirt somewhere, like
next up
of my life.
Yeah.
It is. What are some of the challenges you face, like whether it's database storytelling or just working space as a whole? The challenges the marketing industry faces there with data as well as with stories.
I think a lot of it is authenticity and value. Everyone has access to post, to share, to everything. So how in this market that's so overwhelmed do you stand out? And I think that all comes down to being authentic and adding value to someone's life. If you're not adding value with what it is you're trying to sell or share, or no matter the industry, what good is it? What traction is it going to get? Be different. So I think that's hard, especially because a lot of businesses do not have full marketing teams, right? So now you're doing strategy, you're doing content, and you need to be able to tell that story of that company in an authentic and valuable way. The sheer time it takes to do that, it's hard. And then you're in a world where pumping out content is required, right? So how do you make sure that everything you're putting out has that value? Is that true story? Sometimes you just have to pause and maybe do it differently because it's not exactly you're not being true to yourself or your brand. You got to remember why you're doing it. So you're working against technologies, you're working against policies. There's just so much to it. And it's something that you have to constantly stay on top of and educate yourself on. And it's not easy.
And I think a lot of people do take marketing, like I think everyone thinks they're a marketing expert at like some level, but everyone who works in marketing knows they know nothing and there's like so much more to learn because there's that the industry has changed so much in the last 15 years that I've been in. Like the rules on, privacy have changed. Like they change all the time. You know, what is and isn't okay on Instagram and the way the content is, like there was a time when there was one social media manager who would handle all the platforms that were there, but now there are just so many. Because like for smaller business just starting out and who don't really have the capital to be online in the correct way, it's difficult because if you're like for a lot of people, you're perceived like if you don't really exist online, are you even really there?
Yeah.
It's become a social proof point, and so you have to like really invest time and effort and energy into it, because if you're not there, there's a very small percent of the pie that is actually available to you that you're gonna get. So
So true. We always joke about, so we moved from San Diego to Tyler, Texas. It's 1,400 miles apart and worlds different, right? So when we got here, we always joked about, we felt like we were from the future because you don't have, like the companies around you, the little mom and pop shops, they still exist here for one. They don't have websites. They barely have social media. And it was definitely an adjustment and realizing like this wave of people were coming. Some of the companies here didn't have that ability to keep up with that. And unfortunately, we've seen so many close because of it.
the other thing, like if you can't keep up, you're just gonna get wiped out, because
Yeah.
so much easier like to do stuff online, right? Like that's the sad part. And to like more of the technical stuff. So, the tools and the technology that is available today. There's been like a constant evolution of MarTech tools. And what are your go-to platforms for gathering and analyzing data? You've mentioned Google Analytics is your favorite. So why do you prefer it?
Not so much that, well, okay. It's my favorite for what I'm currently doing, right? Um, Mostly we're building out our foundation. So web traffic is a big part of that foundation, right? Making sure that we are getting it, one, because if we're not getting people to our website, we cannot convert, right?
Yep.
But ultimately, there are a ton of tools. We could go on for tools all day long on what collects them, how to read them, whatnot. Really, it comes down to the way that you're reading them and interpreting them. And most importantly, the people behind it. Like we keep saying data and data, but that data is coming from people, right? There is a human behind that. And are you listening to that person? Are you answering their problems? Or are you just putting them in the stream and ignoring it, right? So if you're not focusing on that, it really doesn't matter what tool you are using because it's going to be the wrong one. Okay. So start with what you have access to, especially for a lot of people that are new to the market or coming in out of college. Whatever you have, use that tool and just make sure you're keeping, again, your eyes on your goal. There's always costs associated and things that you have to consider. I can tell you for the 3 different projects I worked on the last year, we have not had the same tools across any of them. So ultimately, I would love to have a combined analytics dashboard. We're looking at a few different tools right now. I would love to be able to read all of my data in one place. What that looks like, I can't tell you yet because I haven't found it quite yet. But really the best advice is become a person who can crash course any tool, whatever it is, because you will walk into a new job or you will walk into, you'll take a jump for something that you would have never thought you did. And if you don't understand the basics of the tools and why you're using them, it's going to be a hard road.
Yep. Like keep doing like those refresher courses on the analytics things and stuff just to stay up to date, because I feel like always something new.
Yes.
I'd randomly like hear on a podcast and be like, wow, I feel like such a dinosaur. I didn't know this happened. So how do you stay updated on like these latest tech and tools? Like
Networking, conferences, find mentors, find peers that know more than you, right? Because there's always going to be someone in the room that knows more than you. It is ultimately a small community. Some of the best advice I've gotten, some of the latest technologies that I would have never known about happened over a drink sitting on a beach at a conference. Like you get personal and you open up and you would be surprised the amount of information that people will share with you when they feel heard and trusted and safe. So that's a lot of it. what people may not realize is like we're all willing to share and help each other, right? And never stop learning. You can't, especially in this career, you can never stop.
I think the other thing about like networking and conferences is like something that's really helped me is like besides learning new things, it's also the fact that realizing that there are a lot of other people experiencing the same pain points as I am.
Yeah,
That kind of makes me feel so much better, especially now that I'm trying to work on my own. Always assume like my first thing is if I can't get something right, I'm not doing it right or I don't know enough, right? I feel like, oh, someone else has been going through that. It's just not all me and only me. So it's very comforting. And then like two heads better than one, you're more likely to, find the solution correctly.
absolutely.
You're on like part 3, which is the trends in the future. So you probably know what I'm going to say right now. There's AI and
Okay.
analytics and all of that. So a lot of brands are now experimenting with all AI-driven things. And what's been your experience with it?
As our brand, we are not. We use limited AI, specifically to support our recruiting services, and I use very limited because again, our company is saying we can only use what is approved and nothing outside of that. Um, I can tell you it's continually getting better. That we all know, right? I currently use it to bounce ideas off, hold a conversation with. If I'm stuck, I work from home, right? So I can't necessarily have a conversation with Steven, my dog, that's going to help me with what I'm stuck on. Again, being in this day and age, I have, we're all connected to all of our team members, but sometimes you don't want to bring up that idea until you're sure that you've worked out all the kinks on it. So that's a large of it. I'm optimistic and cautious. I know it's going to play a huge part in how we advertise going forward. I know that, especially when we get into cookieless future and so on and so forth, right? But I'm not entirely sure what that looks right now, and I'm okay with that. If you ask me in a year, I assure you I'll have different insight. I'll have a different opinion on it because it's moving so quickly. But right now, we just, my company at least, we are not going all in on it yet.
This is like a piece that I have, like AI and data is a piece that I haven't really experimented with or like looked into. So I definitely have to put some time into learning. Use AI for is just like the basic things like organizing my day and l- writer's block has like completely vanished after ChatGPT because every time you're stuck, you can ask for ideas and feedback and
Yeah.
you have something to work with, right? So you're moving ahead at all times. Like, yeah, it changed the game in so many ways. But at the same time, it keeps revealing how little I know. So, it
Yeah.
constantly reminds me that I need to do better and I need to like push further and learn more and keep up with things because things are really moving fast.
Yes, they are. And keeping up is definitely a challenge.
I think is the future of the industry. And, with cookies heading out, privacy settings getting better, what new data sources should be what we wow. What new data sources should we be watching out for?
I don't think cookies will be out completely. I think that's kind of where I stand. We're still going to have first party cookies. That'll remain integral for site function and whatnot. I think we are going to respect more privacy. So there'll be that big shift towards first party data, contextual targeting, anonymous cohorts, that kind of stuff. I've always relied on UTM and source coding because I don't know if you were in the session where was it Amanda at Marketing Land talking about the cookieless future, right? And how currently, even with GA4, we are not getting the full picture. There are, a lot of data sources that are referring to our site, but they're under direct or they're under organic, and we really don't know what that looks like. So I've always been a strong believer in source coding everything because I know exactly where it came from, exactly what drove it, and it allows me to make those decisions faster. I think we're going to lean more on that. Where it goes from there, I'm not sure. I've got to be honest. I'd like to say that I'm the smartest person on this, and I am not. I am watching it. I am taking notes, and I am realizing that we have to make shifts to respect data again, because a lot of the times we're forgetting who's behind it, right? It's just data, but it's not. So definitely we're going to be respecting it more. Hopefully that's my hope, at least.
Absolutely, like because that's the reason everything's changing, right? Ultimately, like people want their privacy respected. So yeah, always be solutions, and there'll always be like new ways to track, how people are getting to you. So yeah, that it'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah. It's not going to stop. It's not going to stop what we're doing. It's just going to change how we're doing it. And there's so much change all the time. I mean, my goodness, I'd be in the middle of a political campaign and Facebook would change the whole back end of the ads platform, And what do? You learn right there on the fly how to use it. And you don't have any other choice. I think that's going to be, at least this one, we have a little bit of runway. We know it's coming. So what can we do to prepare for it? And you're going to have to.
Absolutely. On to part 4, is the work-life balance. So in a role like this, it is a very demanding role. You have to like constantly be aware of new developments that are happening, or managing the business side of the marketing things, at least like with what you do. And you have your own life as well. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very demanding and 10 being very balanced, what's the work-life balance for a role like this?
-20. Yeah. I got to be honest, maybe not necessarily for the role, but how I approach it. It's not in my nature to find balance. It's just not. I am a workaholic. I am a dreamer. I want to be part of my kids' everything. I want to be a nonstop learner. I want to be social. I want to do all the things and love with all the people. Balance just isn't in my vocabulary, but that's okay, because somehow, even without balance, I'm finding this workflow that works, right? I have throughout my whole career. My children are all in college now, and I'm refiguring out what that looks like. So I guess you could say it's somewhat balanced because I haven't totally lost my mind. But
You found a different kind of rhythm which is working for you, and you've been able to have your cake and eat it with it. Would be like very balanced because then you're doing all the things you love.
I am. But I can tell you a lot of that has to do with working from home. And I know that's a hot topic right now. Returning to work, mandatory returning to work, hybrid, whatever that looks like. And I can tell you that working from home is the only reason I'm able to do what I do. And that's a hard stop. Like that's it. That's why. It's allowed me to be a mom. It's allowed me to become someone where I belong, where I am in the industry. If I was commuting who I am, who my children are, that wouldn't have ever been possible. The relationships I have, my friends, I would have never had time for any of that. I wouldn't have been able to take the risks and been there for my kids when they needed me. So I've been work from home since 2009. So kind of a little bit before the curve, right? I can tell you when everything shut down and my husband was then all of a sudden work from home and our kids were schooling from home and there was 5 of us in a tiny little house. That was rough. But I can tell you that ability to be at home allowed everything else to be possible.
And yeah, it gives you back your time, your energy, you're more focused because there's like less side coffee chats or whatever. Like I mean that they're good for certain things, but you have more focused time at the end of the day, right? So I love it. I'm a big supporter of remote work as well. Uh, what helps you unwind?
Wine. No, I mean, really, that's a plus. But friends, doing things I never thought I would, pushing outside of my comfort zone, doing this. This is definitely outside of my comfort zone. I'm the writer. I'm not the talker. For example, like I don't sing. I cannot sing. It's not like as a little girl I dreamed I'm going to be Britney Spears. I'm going to be Madonna. No, I am. I sound like a dying cat. It's really bad. But on Friday nights, you will find me, my husband, my kids, our closest friends singing karaoke at our friend's shop. Like
This.
that's what we do. And then, next day you might find us in our Jeeps getting sideways out in a mud hole or building Halloween. I haven't even touched on Halloween, but that's a team effort. I have dreams.
So I love this. But It seems like you've managed to find like a very rich balance. I love this. It's very inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
Besides marketing, what are your passions? Is gonna be a list there.
The queen of lists. Let me tell you, sticky note lists, they are everywhere. My kids, so I don't get, it's time to clean, right? So mom doesn't like to get angry. So it's write a list, stick it on their door. This is what I expect to be done today. Okay, so what are my passions? Um, my children. Honestly, I've got to start with them. They are my greatest accomplishment, hand down. I've always been passionate about raising young men that would give back, that offered something to our world, that didn't take from anyone, and would always strive to be better. And they are certainly on that road, and I am so proud of that. So that is number one, 100%. And then it gets into historic Tyler. That's a big one for me. We moved into this community where we knew no one. We got involved. We purchased a historic house, sight unseen. Story for another day. We are currently restoring said house ourselves. And then it gets into Halloween. Halloween is my absolute favorite. We go all out. We do a huge community thing. We shut down the roads. We build new props every year. Right now, there's the Wicked Witch of the East out underneath my house.
Wow. I want to come
we,
visit.
oh my gosh, it's so fun. We have so much fun. We put up lots of pictures, so it is out there for the world to experience. I like to off-road, I like to travel, and I really can't choose between any of those. I love to do them all.
Oh, I'm really happy you took the time to do this because there's about like priorities, your values, the way you approach things. So much that I, both draw inspiration from as well as relate to, like very strongly. Yeah, I'm really glad I got to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much for making the time for me.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is a big step for me and one that I am so happy I got to do with you. This was great.
Before we go, I want to invite you to talk about something that's important to you. It could be a passion project, it could be a business you own and work for, it could be just something doing. So the floor is yours, Ashley.
Oh my goodness. Again, how do I choose? I have Halloween. I have who I work for. There's all these amazing things. So I
About
guess
them all.
I don't know if you have the time for that. So let's start with Halloween. That's what we're in the midst of right now. And then I'll get on to who I work for because they're absolutely amazing. Halloween for me was that one holiday that I always felt seen as a mom, right? It didn't matter what our kids had, what they didn't have, and they didn't have much growing up, but they wouldn't tell you any different. On that night, everyone was the same, right? It didn't matter if you were there in homemade costume. It didn't matter if you spent $300 on your costume. You're all the same. And that meant so much to me. And like I said, we dreamed and we dreamed big. Our dream was always to try not to get emotional here, create that space in our community for people that may not get to experience that in any other way. So we spend 4 months of the year building out Halloween for one night for our community to just come through and have that moment. They can be anyone. They can be anything. And I want them to truly believe that they can be that, right? So that's why we go into this whole thing. That's why there is 12-foot legs and 7-foot tall shoes in front of my house right now. There is a hot air balloon. We're ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But it's because it has a purpose and something that's extremely meaningful for us to give back to our community. While we do volunteer and we do all those things, this is just something so different. And the smile on those kids' faces, I can't tell you. It is worth every moment in 90-degree weather with 90% humidity building out these sets. So definitely Halloween is one of them. Outside of that, where I work now, Pride Staff Dallas is definitely a big passion for me, and my work has to be passionate. Like you said, marketers are passionate. We really are, and we need to be able to pour that into our work. As many know, the job market is really hard right now. My journey with them started as me looking for work over the summer. I had ended my last campaign. I had committed to, I need something different. Campaigns are emotionally hard. They are hard on our family. They're hard in so many different ways, and contract to contract is a hard way to plan for the future, right? So here I am in the middle of this crazy job market, shifting industries. What did I do? I sometimes don't have the best timing. I will admit it. So I had already put in an ungodly amount of applications, interviews, was ghosted, asked to wait till Q1 of 2025 to start with that company, like all the different things you can imagine. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I totally understood, like, my non-traditional background was a problem for a lot of companies, against Ivy League college grads that just got laid off from a FANG company. I had no hope, right? So I interviewed with Sarah, recruiter at PrideStaff Dallas. She's actually with our family of brands. She's amazing, by the way. She said that she had a few opportunities and she would get back to me. I didn't think much about it. This was the third recruiter I worked with. I still was looking. Quickly, she came back with opportunities, none of which kind of worked with the projection I saw my career going, right? Again, I'm a dreamer. I dream big. I want as big as I can get, and then I want to take it further. About a week later, she said, "Hey, I want you to interview with our strategic partner, which is the owner of the Dallas office, Amy." It was amazing. The interview was amazing. She was amazing. I was offered a position to join that team instead of going out for them to help me find work. The fact that I get to work with a team that makes magic every day happen for people in a situation I was in so many different situations with so many different backgrounds, with this insane job market, and they have the support of these women by them. It's crazy. It's definitely something I'm passionate about and happy to be part of. I work for a team of super women, and I am totally honored to be part of it.
A link to both the website as well as your LinkedIn profile if somebody wants to get in touch with you. Yeah, they can reach you there. Is there a specific region or something that you work with that Pride staff works with that you want to invite to specific to get out?
So I specifically work in the PrideStaff Dallas office. So we work directly with Dallas clients and candidates. Now, PrideStaff as a whole is nationwide. So there are different PrideStaff offices all around the country.
So I'll put the link to Dallas there, and from Dallas, and you want to check it out, I'm sure you can find your way with Google. So yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for making the time. This has really been very enriching for me. I appreciate that you made the time for me, and I look forward to seeing you again at the Guru conference.
Yes, sounds great. Thank you so much.